Hello, everybody, and happy Monday. Well, this week I promised we talk about Chinese banks. I got to tell you, I'm glad Walt is keeping up with more of kind of the day-to-day part of it versus this big picture thing that I'm trying to put together. And I've kind of, if you meld the two together, you get a broad picture of what's going on out there. So let's talk about China for a minute and why we should care. So, what's going on over there? Right. Chinese real estate is worth $60 trillion. But look at this part right here. The Chinese, that 70% of household wealth in China is in real estate. We have a lot in America here. Many people invest in their homes or apartments or real estate or land, but really we're kind of a stock market country. We invest in 401ks and IRAs and we follow the markets daily. The Chinese view the stock market more like a casino. Some of you guys do too, but over there it really is a casino. They invest in real estate. 70% of the household wealth over there is there. And look what's happened. In the last few years, that sector is down 30%. Guys, that's 18 trill. That's a ton of money. So what happened? Well, China built too much. You all have probably heard about the ghost cities. They just built these cities out in the middle of nowhere with no demand. Their hope was the country people would leave the country, move to the cities, have economic development. They made some cities look exactly like New York City or San Francisco, but they were shoddily made. The concrete was lousy. The pipes didn't work. And then they sat empty. And you all know what happens to empty anything. It all just begins to collapse. If you want to have some fun, go on YouTube and look at destruction of ghost cities. And you get to see these cities that were built up and then they're just destroying them. Well, banks made loans on those. You don't think that that's now a bad debt? And you don't think that that has rippled through the economy? Anyway, moving on. Of course, the communists are pretty much known for corruption. Of course, the banking issues have just went over. Oh, yeah, and then COVID hit. Now, their stock market, because of the housing thing, is down 47%. Can you imagine if that happened here? I mean, what would happen to 401ks? I guess what I'm saying is real estate over there and stocks over there are still linked. It's probably the same here. We saw that during Lehman Brothers. We'll get to that in just a minute. But look at China's growth rate. The growth rate is now 0.7%. I mean, you might remember it was just a few years ago, China was growing at 8 to 11% per year. Now they're down to 0.7. That's contraction. When you have contraction, tax revenues are falling. And when tax revenues are falling, governments start to panic. So again, why should we care? A couple of reasons. We all know China owns a whole bunch of our government debt, but they've been drawing it down. In the last quarter, they sold off another $53 billion. They used to own 1.3 trillion of our debt. Now there are kind of some disputes. Is it 650 billion they own or about 800 billion? We're not quite sure, but we do know that they're down 30 to 50% in what they used to own of our debt. I used to think that they were selling the debt just to get at America, teach us a lesson, pay us back for tariffs or whatever. Now I'm beginning to think they're selling the debt because they need the money. And so that's one issue, because when they sell the debt or they're not buying our debt, we've got to find buyers for it. And you all know this. We're running up the debts big time. You got to have a buyer. And right now it's not China. So yes, that affects us. We've talked about how banking is all interconnected. Last week, we talked about the issues with the Bank of England. And of course, England's longtime ties to Hong Kong. What's happening to Chinese banks there? This doesn't help. And again, US banks are interconnected with this. And the other issue, maybe the one that probably makes you cringe a little bit, is when communist countries get into trouble. When the people start to rise up, communists are very paranoid about the people. They have always been like this. What's the easiest thing to do? Blame the foreign devils and go to war. And this is what we're seeing. Just some recent headlines. A record 16 Chinese warships were spotted in waters around Taiwan in a 24-hour period late last week, the island's defense ministry reported. It wasn't just 16 ships, these were aircraft carriers. There was 3 aircraft carrier battle groups in a show of force against Taiwan. Next, China sends 71 warplanes, 7 ships toward Taiwan in 24 hours, and China is playing a crazy game of military chicken with Taiwan. Actually, it all kind of makes sense. And Walt and I have talked about this nexus between war and money. It just never goes away. And that's the problem with Wall Street. Wall Street sees down a lane which is always about earnings and profits and this kind of thing. They don't understand war at all. By the way, the Pentagon's the exact same way. And, you know, I kind of lived in both worlds here. The Pentagon just always thinks there's going to be money there. Oh, yeah, we need more tanks. Well, they'll write us a check. Neither side ever brings the two together. This is what we're trying to do here. And our theme, at least as we close out the year, that 2024 would be the year of chaos. I didn't expect it was going to be this intense on both fronts at this point. It has been very positive for your portfolios. And remember 2-3 weeks ago, we talked about how gold doesn't always track with inflation as much as gold tracks with chaos. Well, we'll see what 2025 brings and what our theme is going to be, but I believe we hit it right in 2024. So with that, I'll turn it over to Walt.